We got a lot of people here today. You ready? Okay, it's going to be pre-employment. Did you hear that?
Yeah, pre-employment.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee to order, and I would like to ask Representative Williams if he would give us a blessing.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you again for the opportunity to serve the people of the great state of Georgia. Please watch over us. Give us the courage, give us the knowledge and wisdom to do as I will. Please heal our country. Please watch over the law enforcement, first responders, police, deputies, all law enforcement. Keep them under thy watch and heal this world, dear Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I said the other day that was going to be our last meeting of the year, and then I scheduled another one for Saturday, and when we got the resolution from the Senate and everybody went home, I opted to cancel it again. So we're here today, and as I find out as I approached, the Senate bill that we were supposed to hear is being amended, so it's not going to be heard today either. However, we do have House Resolution 1599 by Representative Hatchett that will be presented. So, Representative Hatchett, if you'll. Whoop.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This House Resolution 1599 is simply an urging resolution, urging our post and other local and state law enforcement agencies to implement psychological testing, which is pre-employment, and improve and look at other current training practices. There's a lot more in the bill, but that's the brunt of it. Post is looking at, or actually they're voting on the inclusion of pre-employment psychological testing at their July 8th meeting, and this would basically sort of give them some reinforcement. The State Patrol and some other agencies currently do that. It's just an urging. It says it would be nice if they did. Your local and other local entities do not have to do it, but it's been proven that it helps in the quality of the individual.
Well, I would just say from my perspective, we've done it for about 25, I say we, the Department of Public Safety has done it for about 25 years. And I think it's a very effective tool. There are many people that want to go into law enforcement that have psyches that probably don't meld in well with dealing with members of our citizenry. And to be honest, I was shocked at how many people fail that. There's two parts of it. One, you have to go talk to a police psychologist, and they give you a written examination. And from what I've been able to glean, most of the people fail it because they have a psychological need to control people. And that's the last person you want out there with the authority to arrest people or interfere with what they have on their agenda that particular day. And I even questioned some of it one time because somebody I knew failed it, and I sent him to another psychologist, and he came back with the same result. So I'm a believer. I think it's important, and I think it would be very positive for the law enforcement community of this state if that occurred. So I appreciate you bringing this.
Thank you.
Got several questions here. Number 2, Representative Gravely. These numbers aren't right, so I have to guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of times when we see bills like this, or we see introductions or encouragement to perform training, some of the pushback can be associated with cost. Well, we can't pay for that, or we can't afford it. But it's my understanding that if an agency, department, or office has forfeited funds, that due to the fact that this would fall under the furtherment of law enforcement, could they utilize those funds in a forfeited account to pay for and manage these types of testing for prospective employees of the department, office, or agency?
I'm not an expert on forfeited funds, although we handle a lot of them. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe you can use it for that. It's against the rules to use it for any type of activity that already is ongoing, and it's against the rules to allow it for personal services. So I think that maybe aligns with it. But I mean, it's open for, to get an answer. It's easy to find out for certain.
Yeah, that would be my question, is because you're looking at, now I understand that you can't use forfeited funds to pay salaries or anything like
Right.
that. Administrative costs.
Buy property.
Exactly. But if we're instituting a training course, which I think would be very much is needed, and I think it would be very warranted, maybe something like that could be approached for the use of those.
Well, training is applicable. You can use forfeited funds for training.
Would this fall under that?
Well, this is pre-employment. I don't know that you train people before you hire them. So. Number 16.
Am I?
It's off to the right here, whoever's got
Okay,
a
that's
question.
me.
that's,
That's me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had just a couple questions for you. One of them is that I know we're addressing lines 20 through 23. You're talking about review and revise current practices for safe and effective conflict resolution. And I just struggle a little bit with this section here. It talks about enmeshing the departments in their local community so as to create a greater level of trust between members of the community and law enforcement officers. And I feel that that is a bit of a statement, and I'm not sure if there's any evidence or if, that's I'm not sure what you're addressing with that. If we really feel like they're not trained well enough on the being in the community. I know that they have training on fostering community relations. I know that they currently have training on use of force, de-escalation, cultural competency. So was there something specific that you were hoping in this section?
Just reinforcing conflict resolution and getting, making sure you have the local support of your local community so that people are, if they see a law enforcement officer, they're not afraid. They're an individual in their community, and they're comfortable just talking with them and being with them. Maybe that wasn't worded. That's what I was trying to say. I didn't write. I was reflecting a thought. So.
And can I have a follow-up as well,
Sure.
just to address this? I know, Representative Hatchett, we discussed this, but one of my biggest concerns with this resolution, and I know that it's an urging resolution and I shouldn't probably be taking this as seriously as I am, but I have trouble with this because I think it's fairly provable that when there is an aggressive act, oftentimes from law enforcement, excessive force, overreaction, nervousness, hesitation, fear, aggression, over response or an under response, we can usually look back to the mental health, the emotional and part of where the officer's been, what they've seen, and how they are handling some of the sort of PTSD that goes along with the job. So I know we just talked about the possibility of amending a portion of this, but I think that it's important to let people know that as the state of Georgia, we recognize that sometimes it's not a training question, but maybe we aren't doing enough to address the mental health part of their job and the needs that they may have.
And I agree with your amendment 100% as maybe an addition, but not as a replacement. But I agree with everything you said.
Would you agree if we added the word pre-employment to the portion which you have?
I'm sorry, where would help me out?
So you were talking on line 16 when it addresses implement psychological evaluation procedures, and you stated that those were the pre-employment.
That's fine.
And that was the portion where I wanted to put the amendment in, and I was hoping to, and I'll state it just for the fact that we're talking about it right now, I wanted to add a portion that states wellness reviews annually and as needed or upon request of a law enforcement officer. Wellness reviews being under the discretion of the agency, of course, to decide what that means. Mental health wellness reviews upon request, as needed or upon request of the officer, during which time the officer will be apprised of the services offered by the Office of Public Safety Support, which are available to him and her. And for the record, we voted 2 years ago on the Office of Public Safety Support, and that was for the mental health portion of what the law enforcement officers and all first responders in Georgia go through. And that was to help them with any issues that they may have that way. And I think the expectation is that law enforcement, when they are mentally and emotionally healthy, that they react in a much better way.
I would be open to pre-employment, and if you want to add all of that you prepared me as a whole other section. we
But
just
that's
have an
urging,
additional section. That's
excuse
up
me,
to the committee, so.
but that's urging too, and it's voluntarily.
Urging.
And you
Urging.
know, that already occurs, and I'll just be straightforward. You know, I've had several law enforcement employees that I have mandatorily required to go see the police psychologist and be evaluated because of things that I've seen or heard that they have done that I didn't feel like was you know, in accordance with the way that they ought to be conducting their business with their citizenry. And some of them have failed it. They passed it when they came on. 4 or 5 years later, after they've been subjected to a lot of different issues, and it affects them psychologically, and they take on a different perspective. And we've actually I've put people in positions where they no longer had contact with the public because of it. And I think that's every law enforcement's agency has the ability to do that now if they want to. And I think even though all of them don't use pre-employment testing, they all, when they feel like there's somebody that has psychological issues, they all require that they undergo testing to make sure that that they are okay. So. No more questions? Sure. Representative Jaspers? 10?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hatchett. Just really a question for the chairman. I was reading a great article that talked about our law enforcement training by post and our what goes on. They described a program, and I need you to tell me that, Mr. Chairman, that over 90% of our law enforcement people get it about conflict resolution. It directly related that to the stellar performance of Georgia law enforcement in dealing with individuals throughout the state, and that we're doing some of this right now. Can you enlighten me?
It is a requirement under post to do conflict resolution. Many other agencies have an extended course they do in the verbal judo, which is similar in that they try and deflect, when people very obviously respond in a negative fashion, they try and encourage it through their words that they de-escalate it. There are some people that you're going to deal with that it doesn't matter anything that you do that that's not going to happen, and we find more and more of that today. But the basic post counsel now that every law enforcement officer in the state has to go through is over 10 weeks now. Some of them, like the Game and Fish, the GBI, and the State Patrol, go for almost 7 months. And you'd be amazed at, and when you get so much at one time, I don't know that everybody is able to be able to recall everything that they're taught. But they, and they do a lot of it, not only through lecture, but they have interaction with one another and try and resolve these things like it would in the real world situation. Although just like anything else, it's practice, and it's not the same as when you're standing alongside the road with somebody that's yelling and screaming and kicking cars and tires, and it's. But
yeah, well, I guess what I want to do, Mr. Chairman, was just draw attention to that, and like you said, the verbal judo, And just to emphasize the fact that I believe Leader Hatchett's just trying to make sure people know about it and that we're doing it and we can even do better. And I appreciate him for bringing this.
And the big thing here recently, in the last 8 or 10 years, have been able to recognize people who have disabilities, particularly mental disabilities. Some of them very easy to detect, some of them aren't. And if you're dealing with somebody that has some type of mental disability and they don't respect that, it's sometimes very difficult to deal with them. We've got a big lawsuit down my way where somebody had a disability and his sister went into a store and left him sitting on the fence, a little concrete fence out front, and he started acting irrationally, and they called the police, and the police came down there, and he didn't want to go with them, and he's 6'7", weighs about 270 pounds, and it now has turned into about a $5 million lawsuit. So it's a difficult job. All the situations are difficult, and I think everybody from Post and in the law enforcement community and generally our citizenry are trying to do everything they can to provide the training and select people. I mean, our selection process for the State Patrol and the GBI is the same, takes about 6 months. I mean, between this type of testing, they have to undergo a polygraph test. And they ask you about everything you've ever done in your life. Have you ever stolen anything? There's some pretty difficult questions in there that average people have. Have you ever used drugs? And, the elimination part, the last trooper school we had before I left, we had 1,200 people pass the test. When we ran them through the physical fitness, the psychological, the polygraph, the interviews, the doctor's physical, we ended up with 92. And then they went through that 7-month school, 42 graduated. So out of 1,200, we got 42. So it's a pretty selective process, and we try as hard as we can to eliminate. But I'll just tell you up front, I've seen some people that we hired who did something 6 months later that I just couldn't believe. And after they've gone through all that and all the training, you wonder, and some of it's emotion, Law enforcement officers aren't exempt from emotion, and you get in a fist fight and somebody pops you in the mouth 3 or 4 times, your emotions seem to overwhelm your good sense. And, and I've probably said more than I need to. Representative Petrie.
Just a quick question to make sure I understand, because you have so much background, so much knowledge. So we all want, I think, what has proposed
Right,
here,
right.
as long as, speaking to, I think I need to, psychological testing. That's a very broad description. So, how do we, can you tell us a little more about what that looks like for law enforcement, to make sure I understand exactly what the description is? Because you do want to make sure that no one, speaking to some of the issues that were just addressed, no one's discriminated against because of whatever might impact. I don't know what goes into this test. We clearly want to make sure that people who aren't suitable for the job are not chosen. So tell me what it looks like.
Well, the honest to God truth is I've never gone through it. I was hired way before anybody ever thought about doing anything like this. There are 2 facets to it that I'm aware of. One is an interview by a police psychologist, and I don't know what questions they ask or how they make a determination. I know your daddy was a psychiatrist, and my grandson's a psychiatrist, and I talk to him about it all the time. But the second portion of it is a written examination, and it's one of these examinations where the questions that are utilized are to derive their personality traits. To see, and that's why I say, most of the people that I've seen fail have some sense of control issues. They want to be able to tell people what they can do and what they can't do, and which is the last thing you want in a law enforcement officer, is somebody who wants to control others. So, and that's, like I said, I don't know whether you were here, but I had one time to somebody that I knew, and he failed a test, and I didn't think that it was accurate. So I sent him to another police psychologist without saying anything, and they came back with the same result. So it kind of made me feel like it was an accurate evaluation, or at least whatever they used to grade was similar.
That helps me, Mr. Chairman, knowing your background, because what I was concerned about was the arbitrary nature of, I do understand what we're talking about, and I understand that somebody can provide a test here and have one result, and next county over, you could have somebody else administering that test and have a completely different answer. And so I just
That's why I
wanted to understand your position in the matter.
That's why I wanted to check it that one time, because I thought it was an error, that I had him judged a whole lot differently, but, you know, there are a lot of times you don't really know what's going on in somebody's head.
And I'm glad you slipped under the radar, Chairman.
Me too.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we're open for a motion. Have a second? We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions, comments? If not, yeah, I need to vote on this first. Okay, that's right. Any further questions? This is open for an amendment. Do you have it?
I didn't.
It's open.
So, and this goes along with a paper that I did give to Representative Hatchett as well. I was going to originally do a replacement, but we're going to change that. So what it'll be instead, it will be an addition. I have to look at this regular to see which line we come in on. If we could, I guess, and so what we'll do is add this, and where's the best place, so.
Probably after 18, between 18
At
and 19.
right there?
Yeah.
Okay. So after 18, can we add, whereas we therefore urge the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council and state and local law enforcement agencies to implement mental health wellness reviews annually and as needed or upon request of a law enforcement officer, during which time the officer will be apprised of the services offered by the Office of Public Safety Support, which are available to him or her. As in addition to that, on line, what is currently line 26, where it says implement psychological testing, I would there also add and mental health, how did we word it? And mental health wellness reviews. And then my statement for that, shall we, and I would like to look to Leader Hatchett as well for this to see, were we going to add pre-employment in front of the psychological testing? Or was that-
Wherever psychological testing exists in the bill, that's fine.
So on line 16, currently it says implement. If we could add pre-employment before the word psychological, as well as what is currently line 26, if we could implement, I'm sorry, on line 26, implement add pre-employment before the word psychological testing. On line 26 and line 16, both being, oh, there you go, thank you. And line 1. Also on line 2, thank you, Representative Petrie, I think that we should address there as well, mental health wellness reviews. And this as an amendment, I just want to make this statement, and for those of you on this committee that are awake, I would just like to say, this is such a statement. This is just to put in there that we recognize that beyond training, that we have a duty and responsibility as the state of Georgia to recognize that we need to offer these services for mental health and well-being for these officers. And so this, again, I recognize that it's an urging resolution, and then there's no specific requirements as to how they do their wellness reviews, but I do want all of our law enforcement officers to know that they have options out there with a peer support program that we created. Thank you.
Do we have all of that? You got it? Okay. Well, let me just say this before we move on. I have no problem with any of this. I worry some that, you know, if you have an agency like the Atlanta Police Department has 2,000 members, or DeKalb County, or the Department of Public Safety, it's got about 1,200. A wellness review annually is something pretty tough to accomplish unless you let somebody who's not a professional do it, like a post commander or a section supervisor. I think most people are pretty, that have been in law enforcement for a long time and are in a supervisory position, are pretty adept at picking up on changes in their personnel when they appear to be going downhill. But go ahead.
And I think in response to that, what I was looking for was exactly that's vague, and they have the opportunity to figure out what that means within their department, and oftentimes, so this does not have to be a sit-down 30-minute visit. It just needs to be, how are you? You know, sometimes, and in some offices, they just need someone to check in on them. I would think that they would be able to decide that. I will say from my perspective and what I know so far, the Office of Public Safety Support is getting a lot of response around the state, but there are still a lot of needy people out there that don't know it exists, and that this could be a benefit to that.
Any further discussion? Okay. Oh, I don't know what kind of number you've got, Representative Holcomb. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of responses. I think generally the amendment makes sense, but I have a couple of questions. One is, on the first line, if you were to insert the pre-employment, I don't know if that's too limiting in that, and I'm not an expert in psychological testing, but I don't know that you wouldn't want to have it available for people who are already within the force. I raised that as a question. And then down on 16, it seems the pre-employment designation also would not be necessary because in 17 it uses the term applicant, which I assume that an applicant is somebody who is not yet a member of the force, but is somebody who is applying to be part of the force.
Okay, is that a further amendment?
If you'd like me to put it in the form of amendment, yes, sir, it would be. It would be.
Well, I think we need to resolve this and make it clean before we go any further. You know, it's I think we need to be specific about what it's going to say and who's going to do what.
I agree.
So you want to make another amendment to add in? Well, we should vote on hers first. That's exactly right. You've heard her motion. Do we have a second on it? Okay. We now are going to vote on the amendment to the original bill. Well, we'll do this one first, then we'll go to the next amendment. So all in favor of the first amendment signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, Representative Holcomb, state your amendment.
The amendment would be to delete the pre-employment in line 1, so that way it provides for greater opportunities if this is needed for those who are already within the force, and then to delete the pre-employment insertion in line 16 because that paragraph only refers to applicants.
Any discussion?
Jim?
Representative
Thank
Locke.
you, Mr. Chairman. And the only thing that I would ask to that, and again, I'll ask Leader Hatchett as well, is that I think the point of this was to assist Post in their efforts. And if we leave out pre-employment psychological testing, if we leave out the word pre-employment, are we not leaving them open to neglect that action until there's a reason to do it? It's a question, I'm sorry.
And I've lost track of it, but I thought we had pre-employment in at the beginning.
I would, and I'm not on the committee and I'm at the will of the committee, but I would say probably on line one, the pre-employment would be fine. I do understand what Representative Holcomb is saying about 16.
Sure.
So,
And that already occurs, to be honest, at least in the organizations that I'm familiar with. Anybody can ask for it at any time, and it can be mandated at any time. Okay, any further, have you got it? Our legal counsel?
The latest amendment would be to remove pre-employment from the amendment on line 1 and on 15.
Do we want to take it out of line 1 too?
I don't have a strong feeling about it, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine with deleting it.
Well, I think what we'd like to do is have everybody tested pre-employment, and then have the organization's ability, the organization and the individual be allowed to have them psychologically evaluated at a later date. You know, if somebody in the organization thinks they need it, or if the person thinks that they need help, and that already exists in state government. I can tell you that you can get psychological help anytime you ask for it. In line 1, I think we would like to see all candidates for a law enforcement position have psychological testing pre-employment. You weed out a lot of problems before you get started. Have we got it, Ms. Dola?
The amendment is to remove pre-employment from the other amendment that was passed on line 1. Or on line 16.
Although it really doesn't matter.
Further discussion in a second. Huh? Yeah. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, do we have a second for the Second Amendment?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of the Second Amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The amendment passes. Now we're gonna vote on the bill as amended twice. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.